This is a mock interview conducted by Forum IAS Academy at New Delhi. The interview panel includes eminent academicians, retired bureaucrats, and other luminaries. The objective of the program is to acquaint the candidate with the format and expectations of the personality test conducted by UPSC.
May I come?
Yes, come in, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Please sit down.
So you can relax first of all, huh? So do you think India is in the grip of stagflation just now?
Ma'am, we are suffering from inflation. In both January and February, inflation exceeded the 6% upper limit set by the RBI. But we are not stagnating as an economy.
Why would you say that? The growth indicators have all been down. Now today the trade indicators have come, they're very alarming, and investment is not coming in. What else would you require as an indicator for stagnation?
Ma'am, in my view, the predicted rate of growth for the 2022-23 fiscal year is 7%. And that is not characteristic of an economy suffering.
Let us do past tense. Future is always, I've been hearing green shoots for the last 10 years. So let's talk on what has happened. What is it now, not projected? Because they've down their projections every time. Has any of the projections been upped ever on basis of actuals? So, what else do you say is the indicator for stagnation? All these? Unemployment, where is it?
Ma'am, it's about 28%.
So, are we not stagnating? Employment, growth, investment, trade?
Ma'am, we are, but I would still say that compared to other developed economies...
I'm asking just a plain simple question. Are we in the grip of stagflation? Well, this is leading to other questions after that.
Ma'am, I would say inflation is high. Stagnation in unemployment terms is high. But in terms of GDP growth, I would not say that the economy is stagnating.
Mm-hmm. What do you think should be our GDP growth rate today? What should it be? If we are like on the high path as we say we are, what should it be? And what is it? What is actually coming down to?
Ma'am, for the third quarter, it was 4.4%.
Not third quarter. Let's look at a longer term. Let's look at the last fiscal. Let's look at this fiscal.
Ma'am, because during the COVID year, there was
No, I'm not asking for explanations. I'm just asking for a fact so that I can go to the next question.
Ma'am, about the rate of growth.
Let me leave that as it is. Now, what really is ailing our economy? Why are we not able to fulfill our goals?
Ma'am, there are a number of factors.
Tell me top three.
Ma'am, the first would be the unemployment problem. We are not able to reap the demographic dividend because of unemployment, and the large population becomes more of a burden.
Just a slight aside, I would say demographic dividend is the biggest myth. I would say we need to curb it. I would say that one of the biggest problems of our country is that we've got a totally uncontrolled population growth, which eats up everything we make, which leads not only to unemployment but to disguised unemployment also. So your actual employment is much higher. Don't you see at the traffic lights everyone races? You know, when they're going to enter a plane, everyone races for seats. Come on, your seat is your seat. But it's always racing for scarce resources because there's so many people. No, haven't you noticed that? Psyche is there in all of us.
Ma'am, I believe that the problem, along with having a huge population, is the fact that we are not able to invest in education and health resources, because even China, which is the most populous country in the world, it has a lot of population, but because
China, let's not compare. I feel the comparisons with China are completely specious, because the whole ball game is different there. You know, we say we are the fastest growing, but what is our base compared to? So let's just look at ourselves. Huh? Of course, there are global factors, no doubt. There's a downturn and recession, etc. But let's look at ourselves. Okay. So one thing you said, unemployment. So why are we not able to provide employment? There's so many schemes. Now Manrega we've chopped down, right? So why would you want to chop down Manrega?
Ma'am, I believe that the reduced allocation for Manrega is motivated more by political reasons. because
Okay. All right. If you've said that, there's nothing further to talk on that line. Okay. So now, okay, let's leave that. Let's leave the bigger questions. Now, if you were Governor RBI, what would you do today? What are 3 steps you would take today?
Ma'am, the first step would be relating to banking sector reforms, easing of governance, easing of banking regulations, while also ensuring that...
what are the banking regulations that are coming in the way of growth? Tell me. What are the regulations? They lend so freely and so recklessly that you have to bail them out with, what are they called? Capitalization every 2-3 years. So where is the regulations coming in the way of anything? They have lots of money. They are saying take it. No, there are no takers because there's no demand. No.
Ma'am, but ease of banking is something that can still be brought about. For instance, KYC was...
Come to the point. Next.
Ma'am, the second would be, in my opinion, thinking about what the repo rate should be, because there is a MPC meeting coming up in April.
Of course, what should we do? Up or down? Thinking, of course. Should we make it up or down? 6.88 is the inflation.
Ma'am, there is a trade-off involved. I would say to keep it as it is, because the growth rate in the economy is also important. So increasing the interest rate would compromise on that. Inflation is something that is...
All right.
Gauri,
Sir.
have you heard of this Bilkis Bano case? Bilkis Bano case of Gujarat.
Sir.
So 11 convicts were released by the state government.
Sir.
Bilkis Bano approached Supreme Court, but Supreme Court rejected the review petition. Why did Supreme Court reject the review petition?
Sir, if I recall correctly, I think the matter was one of which particular law should be applied, and it was amended at a certain date after the riots took place. So the question was whether the amended version should be applied or the earlier version should be applied in determining whether the convicts should be released. I think it was also a case of the law of which state should be applied, because the cases were transferred to Maharashtra.
That's what I am talking about. Which state should take the decision regarding the release of the convicts, right? So then Bilkis Bano approached again to the Supreme Court with a plea to discard that decision of the Gujarat government. Supreme Court has not yet has not taken any session on that particular plea. Now her concern is that her life is under threat because those convicts are from the same village. Don't you think that Supreme Court is missing on its duties while it's taking up many other cases, lesser important cases, but is not been able to protect the right of the citizen?
Sir, delay in hearing to the case, no doubt, is problematic, and is part of the judicial system where there is huge number of pendency in the Supreme Court, and hence there is delay in cases that require urgent hearing as well. So it does seem to be a problem, but there are measures in the interim that can be taken for the protection of the victim. There are schemes for witness protection and for victim protection that would allow her protection from in case she feels threatened by the perpetrators.
Okay. Now coming to the, talking about the Supreme Court only. Supreme Court issued notice to Center as well as 5 states regarding the appointment of Deputy Speaker, right? What is the locus standi of Supreme Court in this? What is the constitutional provision?
Sir, the constitutional provision with regards to this is that this election for the Deputy Speaker should be done after that of the Speaker. Sir, that is what I am aware of.
Can Lok Sabha Speaker take this matter, so that Supreme Court has suo motu taken up this case. Can Lok Sabha Speaker take this matter as a breach of privilege case?
So, to the extent it involves judicial intervention in the functioning of the House, it is categorized as an intervention. I'm not completely sure if it can be taken as a breach of privilege, because for a long time the post of the Deputy Speaker has been empty. So in the absence of that legislative initiative, if the court is intervening, there is a fine line. It's a blurred line.
Has it ever happened in the past in independent India where Speaker has taken such intervention as breach of privilege and judges were summoned? So you should read about it.
Gauri, in our preamble, there is a term called economic justice. Can you explain what is your interpretation of economic justice?
Sir, to state briefly, economic justice would be an equitable distribution of economic resources in positive terms, or an absence of stark economic inequalities in negative terms.
Okay, so you are saying resource distribution and everyone has an equitable access to resources. Sir. Any steps that have been taken in this regard? Any provisions in the constitution and or what the government has been doing?
Sir, the number of poverty alleviation programs are aimed at equitable distribution of resources.
Okay. Let's say pick up a particular sector. Let's talk about gig economy, for example. There were some protests, by the gig workers that they were protesting against the platform companies, and they were arguing about lack of social security, and there was lack of minimum wage. So how do you think we should go about it? Should the government regulate this sector?
Sir, government standards for labor in the sector would indeed be helpful because...
Are there any minimum wage standards in India?
Sir, so there are.
Okay, and are they being implemented? What is the minimum wage level?
Sir, I believe it is rupees 300 something.
Okay, say for example, a gig worker says that his right is being violated. What are the remedies available to her?
Sir, I'm not sure.
Okay. Anyways, what is your opinion? Should the government step in and regulate the startup sector, especially in terms of social security?
Sir, I think that would be advisable. If I recall correctly, I think there is a Niti Aayog report also that suggests the same. They suggest that platformization be encouraged and social security measures be provided within the step, because the sector is growing exponentially. So for the welfare of the workers of the sector, that would be advisable.
But there is a counter opinion. If the government steps in and establishes minimum standards, say for example, social security, say they have to pay a minimum pension, say for example, but that would eliminate the cost, cost efficiency that the startups have, and that may in fact just completely negate the business model, because they are operating on cost efficiencies, and if those cost efficiencies go, the whole sector may collapse. So how would you, balance this?
Sir, whatever social security regulations that the government would seek to provide would have to be in consultation with the industry leaders and industry experts. And perhaps that constructive engagement would allow them to come up with certain standards that do not adversely affect the costs of the sector that much. So perhaps provision of a pension for some companies, it may be not cost effective at all, maybe different, they can be divided based on their profits, based on their costs, and subsequently standards can be imposed. The fact of the matter remains that there is a need for intervention, because...
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Hi, Gauri.
Hello, sir.
Gauri, which part of the constitution is your favorite part?
Sir, part 3, fundamental right.
And which fundamental right is your favorite fundamental right?
Sir, Article 21 and 32, right to life and personal liberty, and 32 would be right to constitutional remedies.
Okay, if you have the authority to go ahead and amend constitution, what one thing would you like to amend? It can be a big bang reform, it can be a minimal thing, whatever you think.
Sir, in my view, whatever amendments were required have been made. It is a great document that has sustained the largest democracy in the world for 75 years. So
no improvement is needed.
There have been so many amendments.
Oh.
So this was said 75 years back also, or let's say at least 72 years back.
Sir, over 100 amendments have been made. It is a living document because it allows for the...
So we want it to sustain further, right? So everything is right with the constitution. Nothing can be improved.
Sir, there can be certain improvements. For example, certain directive principles of state policy which are non-justiciable.
Exactly. So what amendment? What amendment?
So, sir, the amendment would be to bring them within the justiciable part of the constitution. That is the
Anyone DPSP?
Sir, that requires equal pay for equal work between men and women. Preventing concentration of wealth and equitable distribution of resources. This is amongst them.
Yeah, okay. Talking about amendments, what was your evaluation of budget this time?
Sir, there were certain major schemes for some sectors.
Tell me two goods and two bads.
Sir, the first good, in my view, would be certain reforms for the infrastructure sector that were announced. So, 100 critical projects were identified. Urban Infrastructure Development Fund has been identified for Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. And also in the agriculture sector, an agriculture accelerator fund for rural startups. And one major problem in agriculture sector is the imbalanced use of fertilizers. So a PM Pranam scheme was announced that seeks balance between chemical fertilizers and alternative.
Okay, and the bads?
Sir, the bads in my view would not be so much in the formulation of the budget as in...
okay, I'll reframe the question. Tell me one change you want to make in the budget.
Sir, I would focus more on employment generation. It is a major problem, the high rate of unemployment. So more schemes focusing on that, both skilled as well as unskilled workers.
Okay.
You were excellent, but yes, you were shaky in the beginning, and I was playing to your strength because I asked only your biodata questions, four dances ka difference, and I asked you basically your hardcore economics. I felt that you were afraid to say anything, even smack of being critical to anything of the government. That's why you were afraid to give. You're not. You're giving an opinion. I mean, you are saying positive, and I liked that question he said about, what was the last one? She said, I'll give the positives first. Good. That's a very good way to answer it, you know. You're articulate, you're very well turned out, and you're original. You're not like coached. I mean, your way of speaking, your way of your demeanor, your answering, everything is you. So that is very good because we come across so many clones. You're not one of those. You are yourself. And when you allow yourself to be yourself, you are exceptional.